At 2:17 a.m., billionaire Ethan Carter stood alone on the balcony of his $40 million Manhattan penthouse. He had everything money could buy: a billion-dollar company, luxury cars, private jets, a penthouse overlooking New York City, and hundreds of people who called themselves his friends. But that night, Ethan asked himself one question: if I lost every dollar tomorrow, who would still call me? He picked up his phone and looked through his contacts. CEO, investor, lawyer, celebrity, politician, hundreds of names, but there wasn't a single person he trusted enough to call a true friend. Then Ethan did something nobody in his world could have imagined. He transferred control of his fortune to a legal trust, disappeared from the public eye, changed his name, and took a job cleaning bathrooms and mopping floors inside one of his own luxury hotels. For 6 months, nobody would know that the quiet janitor pushing a cleaning cart through the lobby was actually a billionaire. He wasn't looking for money. He wasn't looking for fame. He wasn't even looking for love. He was looking for one person who would treat him like a human being when he had nothing to offer. But on his 4th day as a janitor, an 8-year-old girl walked up to him, handed him half of her only sandwich, and said, "You look lonely. You can sit with me." Ethan didn't know it yet, but that little girl was about to change his entire life. Because the billionaire who went undercover to find one true friend was about to find something money could never buy: a family. The next morning, Ethan Carter did something he had never done before. He walked into a small barber shop wearing a baseball cap and an old hoodie. "Cut it short," he told the barber. "How short?" "Short enough that nobody recognizes me." The barber laughed. Ethan didn't. An hour later, the man who had appeared on magazine covers looked completely different. His expensive watch was gone. His designer clothes were packed away. His phone was replaced with a cheap prepaid device. Even his name disappeared. From that day forward, he was Daniel Brooks, a 40-year-old maintenance worker looking for a job, nothing more. The hotel Ethan chose was one of the largest properties owned by Carter Global. 26 floors, luxury suites, a marble lobby, private restaurants, and hundreds of employees, the perfect place to disappear. When Ethan walked into the maintenance office for his first shift, the supervisor barely looked at him. Name: Daniel Brooks. Experience: some. The supervisor raised an eyebrow. Some. Ethan nodded. "I can learn." The supervisor handed him a gray uniform. "Put this on." Then he pointed toward a cleaning cart. "Your first job is the lobby: floors, bathrooms, elevators, everything." Ethan looked at the cart. 6 months ago, he had signed a $200 million acquisition deal in that same building. Today, he was being told to clean its bathrooms. He smiled. Got it. The first few hours were harder than Ethan expected. His back started hurting. His hands became wet and rough. People walked around him without saying a word. Some guests didn't even bother looking at him. One woman dropped a napkin on the floor less than 2 feet from the trash can. She looked directly at Ethan. "Clean that." Then she walked away. Ethan stared at the napkin. For a moment, anger rose inside him. Then he remembered why he was there. He picked it up and kept working. At lunchtime, Ethan sat alone in the employee cafeteria. He expected someone to talk to him. Nobody did. Employees sat in groups. They laughed. They talked about their families, their vacations, their weekend plans. Ethan sat quietly with a cheap sandwich. Then someone placed a tray across from him. "Can I sit here?" Ethan looked up. It was Lily, the little girl from the lobby. She was holding her stuffed rabbit. Ethan smiled. "Sure." She sat down. For a few seconds, neither spoke. Then Lily looked at his sandwich. "That's all you're eating?" "Yep." She opened her lunchbox. Inside was a peanut butter sandwich and an apple. She pushed half the sandwich toward him. "Here." Ethan frowned. "Why?" "Because you look hungry. I already have food." "So?" She shrugged. "My mom says people shouldn't eat alone." Ethan looked at the sandwich, then at Lily. "You always listen to your mom." Lily smiled. "Not always." Ethan laughed. It was the first time he'd laughed all day. A few minutes later, Sophia entered the cafeteria. The moment she saw Lily sitting with Ethan, she stopped. "Lily." Lily looked up. "Mom." Sophia walked over. "I told you not to bother Mr. Brooks while he's working." "I'm not bothering him." She looked at Ethan. "Are you sure?" Ethan smiled. "She's fine." Sophia gave him a cautious look. Then she noticed the half sandwich. "You gave him your lunch." Lily nodded. He looked lonely. Sophia sighed. Lily. But Ethan shook his head. It's okay. Sophia looked at him. Thank you. Ethan simply nodded. She walked away with Lily, but before leaving, Lily turned around. See you tomorrow, Daniel. Ethan smiled. See you tomorrow. And somehow, he was already looking forward to it. That evening, Ethan returned to his tiny rented apartment. It was nothing like his penthouse. One bedroom, one old couch, one small kitchen, no security. No servants, no expensive furniture. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt peaceful. Then his phone rang. It was his lawyer. Ethan answered quietly. What's happening? The board believes you're still overseas. Good. There's something else. Ethan's expression changed. What? Marcus requested an emergency meeting. Ethan became still. Marcus had been his closest business partner for 12 years. The man Ethan trusted with everything. His lawyer continued. He's pushing for temporary control of the company. On what grounds? He claims you're mentally exhausted and unable to manage the business. Ethan clenched his jaw. Can he do that? Not yet. But the lawyer hesitated. He has support from several board members. Ethan stared at the wall. His little experiment had just become much more serious, because while he was pretending to be nobody, someone was trying to become him. The next morning, Ethan arrived at the hotel before sunrise. As he pushed his cleaning cart through the lobby, he noticed something unusual. A group of executives entered through the main doors. At the center of them was Marcus. Ethan immediately lowered his head. Marcus walked directly toward the elevators. He never noticed him, but Ethan noticed something else. Marcus was carrying a folder marked Confidential, Carter Global. Ethan watched the elevator doors close. His heart started beating faster. Why was Marcus here? And what was inside that folder? Ethan didn't know yet, but before the day ended, he was going to discover a secret that would force him to choose between two things: protecting his billion-dollar empire, or protecting the people who had finally made him feel like he belonged. Ethan waited until Marcus disappeared into the executive elevator. Then he slowly pushed his cleaning cart toward the hallway. He couldn't follow Marcus, not without risking everything. So he did the only thing he could do. He listened. 10 minutes later, the elevator doors opened. Marcus stepped out with two board members. They were speaking quietly. Ethan kept his head down and pretended to clean the marble floor. Once the transfer is approved, one of the men whispered, Ethan won't be able to stop it. Marcus nodded. He won't even know what happened until it's too late. Ethan's hand froze around the mop. Transfer. What were they planning to transfer? Marcus glanced toward the lobby. Ethan immediately bent down and wiped the floor. The three men walked past him. One of them dropped a folder. Ethan watched as Marcus picked it up. On the front were 3 words, Project Family Trust. Ethan's eyes narrowed. That name meant nothing to him, but something about it felt wrong. That afternoon, Ethan decided to investigate. He couldn't access his company's computer systems without exposing his identity. But there were other ways. As a janitor, he could go places executives never noticed. Storage rooms, service corridors, maintenance offices. And people talked differently when they thought nobody important was listening. Ethan entered the hotel's supply room. He noticed a small office at the back. The door was slightly open. Inside, 2 executives were talking. Marcus wants the foundation money moved by Friday. Does Sophia know? No. Ethan stopped breathing. Sophia, why was Lily's mother involved? Then he heard the second man say, she'll be fired before she can ask questions. Ethan's jaw tightened. He quietly walked away before they noticed him. At the end of his shift, Ethan found Sophia in the laundry room. She looked exhausted. Long day? Ethan asked. Sophia forced a smile. Every day is a long day. You okay? She hesitated, then whispered, they're cutting my hours. Who? Management. Why? I don't know. Ethan knew that wasn't the whole story. Sophia. She looked at him. I've worked here for 4 years. Suddenly they say I'm too expensive. Ethan frowned. You're too expensive. She laughed bitterly. I make barely enough to pay rent. Then she looked away. I think they're trying to get rid of me. Ethan wanted to tell her everything. He wanted to say, you don't have to worry. This is my company, but he couldn't, not yet. Instead, he asked, would you like some help? Sophia shook her head. I've spent my whole life surviving. I'll figure it out. Ethan smiled softly. I believe you. That evening, Ethan found Lily sitting outside the employee entrance. She was crying. He immediately crouched beside her. Lily. She wiped her eyes. I'm okay. That's what everyone says when they're not okay. She looked at him. Mom got bad news. Ethan sat beside her. What happened? She said we might have to move. Why? She can't afford the apartment if they cut her hours. Ethan felt something inside him break. He could solve this problem in 5 minutes. He could give Sophia enough money to never worry again, but if he did, his entire disguise would be exposed. Lily looked at him. Daniel. Yeah, are we going to be okay? Ethan swallowed hard. Yes. How do you know? He smiled. Because I'm not going anywhere. Lily leaned against his shoulder, and Ethan realized something. 6 months ago, he had entered this hotel looking for a true friend. Now he was starting to care about these people like they were his own family. The next morning, Ethan received a message from his lawyer. Urgent. He stepped into an empty service hallway and called. What happened? We found the documents. What documents? The ones Marcus has been using to take control of Carter Global. Ethan's voice became cold. And there's more. What? Marcus has been stealing money from the company for almost 2 years. Ethan closed his eyes. How much? Nearly $80 million. Ethan's jaw tightened. Can we prove it? Yes. Then expose him. Not yet. Why? Because there's one more person involved. Ethan went silent. Who? His lawyer answered. Your head of security. Ethan stared at the floor. The betrayal was bigger than he'd imagined. But then his lawyer said something even worse. We also found payments going to someone named Sophia Reyes. Ethan's blood ran cold. What? Ethan, I think Sophia may be involved. No, you don't know that. I know hers. You've known her for weeks. Ethan shook his head. You're wrong. But for the first time since meeting Sophia, a small doubt entered his mind. And Ethan hated himself for having it. That night he watched Sophia leave the hotel. She looked around nervously before getting into an old car. Ethan followed from a distance. The car stopped outside a small cafe. A man was waiting for her. Sophia stepped out. They spoke for several minutes. Then the man handed her an envelope. Ethan's heart sank. He couldn't hear their conversation, but he saw Sophia put the envelope inside her purse. Then the man touched her arm. Sophia immediately pulled away. She looked frightened. Ethan wanted to confront her, but something stopped him. He remembered Lily. He remembered the half sandwich. He remembered Sophia defending him when everyone else accused him. Could she really be betraying him, or was there another explanation? The next morning, Ethan found something under the hotel office door. A photograph. It showed Sophia standing beside Marcus. On the back, someone had written, "Ask her what she's hiding." Ethan stared at it. Then another photograph slipped through the gap. This one showed Lily walking home from school, alone. Ethan's expression changed instantly. This wasn't about money anymore. Someone was watching Lily. Someone was threatening Sophia, and whoever it was knew exactly where to hurt Ethan. He folded the photographs and put them in his pocket. Then he whispered, "You picked the wrong family." For the first time since becoming a janitor, Ethan stopped thinking like a billionaire. He started thinking like a man who had something to protect, and he was about to uncover the truth. Ethan barely slept that night. The photographs were sitting on the table in front of him. Sophia with Marcus, the envelope, Lily walking home alone, and one sentence written across the back. Ask her what she's hiding. Ethan had spent his entire life learning how to read people. But now, for the first time, he was afraid he might have been wrong. Not about Marcus, about Sophia. At 6:30 the next morning, Ethan arrived at the hotel. Sophia was already there. She was folding towels in the laundry room. Ethan watched her for several seconds, then he walked inside. Sophia. She looked up. Daniel, can I ask you something? Her hand stopped moving. Sure. Do you know Marcus? Sophia's face changed, only for a second, but Ethan noticed. Yes. How? She looked down. I used to work directly for his office. Ethan's stomach tightened. You never told me that. You never asked. That isn't the whole story. Sophia became silent. Ethan stepped closer. What's in the envelope? Her eyes widened. What envelope? The one you received last night. Sophia immediately looked toward the door. Then she whispered, You followed me. I was worried about you. You shouldn't have. Why? Sophia's eyes filled with tears. Because if they know you're involved, they'll come after you too. Ethan froze. Who? Sophia shook her head. I can't tell you. Why? Because I'm trying to protect my daughter. Ethan's voice softened. From Marcus. Sophia looked at him and finally nodded. Yes. Sophia sat down. For several seconds she said nothing. Then she reached into her purse. She pulled out an old photograph. It showed a younger Sophia standing beside a man Ethan didn't recognize. My husband, she whispered. Ethan looked at the photograph. What happened to him? He worked for Carter Global. Ethan's expression changed. When? 3 years ago. What did he do? He discovered something. What? Marcus was moving company money through fake charities. Ethan's eyes widened. So your husband knew. Sophia nodded. He wanted to report it. What happened? Sophia's voice broke. He died 2 weeks later. Silence. Ethan stared at her. Was it an accident? Sophia shook her head. I don't know. Then she looked directly into his eyes. But I know someone wanted him silent. Ethan felt his blood run cold. Why didn't you tell the police? I tried. They said there wasn't enough evidence. And Marcus. He told me that if I kept asking questions, Lily would become an orphan too. Ethan clenched his fists. That explained everything. The secret meetings, the envelope, the fear. Sophia wasn't betraying anyone. She was trying to survive. Ethan sat beside her. I believe you. Sophia looked at him. You shouldn't. Why? Because trusting people gets people hurt. Ethan smiled sadly. Maybe. Then he looked at her. But not everyone is Marcus. Sophia wiped her tears. Daniel. It's Ethan. She froze. What? Ethan stood. My name is Ethan. Sophia stared at him. Ethan what? He took a deep breath. Ethan Carter. Her face went completely pale. The room seemed to stop. You're. Yes. The owners. Yes. The billionaire. Ethan nodded. Sophia stepped backward. You lied to me. I hid the truth. That's the same thing. I needed to know who people were before they knew who I was. Sophia stared at him with tears in her eyes. And what did you learn? Ethan looked at her. That you were protecting your daughter. He paused, and that I was right to trust you. Sophia didn't know what to say. Then the door opened. Lily walked in. Mom. Both adults turned. Lily looked between them. Why are you crying? Sophia quickly wiped her face. I'm okay. Lily looked at Ethan. Daniel. Ethan smiled. It's Ethan now. Lily frowned. Are you still my friend? Ethan walked toward her. I'll always be your friend. She smiled. Good. Then she hugged him. Sophia watched them, and something inside her finally broke. She realized Ethan wasn't pretending anymore. He wasn't trying to find a friend. He had already found one. But they didn't have much time. That afternoon, Ethan's lawyer arrived secretly at the hotel. He brought documents proving Marcus had stolen millions, but there was one problem. The evidence couldn't be presented yet. We need Marcus to admit everything, the lawyer explained. How? We need him to believe you're still hiding. Ethan smiled, so we let him think he won. His lawyer looked concerned. What are you planning? Ethan looked toward the lobby. Marcus was standing across the room. Watching them, Ethan lowered his voice. We're going to give him exactly what he wants. That evening, Ethan deliberately made a mistake. He entered the executive office while Marcus was there. Marcus turned. What are you doing here? Ethan looked nervous. I was looking for something. Marcus smiled. You shouldn't be here. Ethan lowered his head. I'm sorry. Marcus stepped closer. You know Daniel. People like you should learn their place. Ethan stayed silent. Marcus leaned toward him. Some people are born to clean floors. And some are born to run companies. Then Marcus walked away. Ethan waited until he was gone. Then he smiled, because Marcus had just said exactly what Ethan needed. The hidden microphone had recorded every word. But when Ethan returned to the maintenance room, the door was open. He immediately knew something was wrong. His bag was gone, the photographs were gone, and on the table was a note. He picked it up. His hands trembled. There were only 6 words. We have your little friend. Ethan's heart stopped. Lily. He ran through the hallway, past the lobby. Past the elevators, he grabbed his phone. Sophia. No answer. He called again. Nothing. Then his phone rang. Unknown number. Ethan answered. A man's voice whispered, come alone. Ethan's expression hardened. Where is she? Warehouse 17. Let touch her and... The man laughed. You're not the billionaire here. Ethan stopped. The voice continued. You're just a janitor. The call ended. Ethan stared at the phone, then slowly removed his janitor badge. He placed it on the floor. And for the first time, he didn't care if the whole world discovered who he really was. Someone had threatened his family, and they had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. They had given Ethan Carter a reason to stop hiding. The biggest mistake of their lives. They had given Ethan Carter a reason to stop hiding. Ethan drove through the rain without turning on the radio. His hands were tight around the steering wheel. His mind kept repeating the same words. We have your little friend. Lily, an 8-year-old girl who had trusted him when she didn't even know his real name. An 8-year-old girl who had shared her lunch with a man she thought was just a lonely janitor. And now someone had taken her. Ethan pressed the accelerator. For 6 months, he had deliberately avoided using his wealth. Tonight, he didn't care. He called his lawyer. Get the security team ready. His lawyer immediately understood. Are you revealing yourself? Yes. Are you sure? Ethan stared through the windshield. They took Lily. There was a long silence. Then his lawyer said, I'll handle everything. Warehouse 17 stood at the edge of the city. It was an abandoned Carter Global property. Ethan parked several hundred feet away. He stepped out alone. The rain soaked his clothes. He walked toward the warehouse. The enormous metal doors were slightly open. Inside, one light flickered above the concrete floor. Lily. His voice echoed through the building. Nothing. Then he heard a small voice. Daniel. Ethan's heart stopped. Lily. He ran toward the sound. She was sitting on a chair near the center of the warehouse. Her hands weren't tied. She wasn't injured. But a man stood behind her. Marcus. Ethan stopped. Marcus smiled. You came. Ethan looked at Lily. Are you okay? Lily nodded. I knew you'd come. Marcus laughed. You really care about her. Ethan looked at him. You're finished. Marcus shook his head. No, Ethan. He stepped forward. You are. Marcus held up a folder. Your company. Ethan stared at it. You've been trying to steal it. I've already taken control of most of it. You're a thief. Marcus laughed. No. He pointed toward Lily. I'm a survivor. Ethan's expression hardened. You threatened a child. I needed leverage. She has nothing to do with this. She has everything to do with it. Marcus walked closer. You spent 6 months pretending to be a nobody. He smiled. You wanted to discover who your real friends were. Marcus spread his arms. Well, did you find any? Ethan looked at Lily, then toward the warehouse entrance. Yes. Marcus frowned. What? Ethan smiled. I found a family. Suddenly the warehouse lights turned on. Marcus looked around. Dozens of security officers stood at the entrances. His face went pale. Ethan's lawyer walked in behind them. Marcus Carter, he said, you are being recorded. Marcus looked at Ethan. You set me up. Ethan nodded. You confessed everything. Marcus's eyes widened. The microphone was in my uniform. Ethan took out his phone. On the screen was a recording, Marcus's own voice. Some people are born to clean floors, and some are born to run companies. Then another recording, Marcus discussing the stolen money. Then another, his threats against Sophia. Marcus's face collapsed. You planned all of this. Ethan shook his head. No. He looked at Lily. You did. Security officers moved toward Marcus. But Marcus suddenly pulled a small object from his pocket. A phone. He pressed a button. The warehouse doors slammed shut. The lights went out. Lily screamed. Ethan immediately moved toward her. Lily, stay behind me. Emergency lights flickered on. Marcus was gone. Ethan looked around. Then he heard footsteps. A side door opened. Marcus was running. Ethan chased him. They raced through the warehouse corridors. Marcus reached an exit, but Ethan was faster. He grabbed Marcus's arm. Marcus turned. You ruined everything. Ethan stared at him. No. You had everything. I had money. Marcus struggled. You don't understand. Ethan tightened his grip. I understand now. Marcus stared at him. What? Ethan looked back toward Lily. Money means nothing if you have nobody worth coming home to. Police sirens echoed outside. Marcus finally realized he had nowhere to run. As officers arrested him, he looked at Ethan one last time. You'll lose everything. Ethan smiled. I already risked everything. He looked toward Lily, and I gained something better. Outside, Sophia ran toward Lily. My baby. Lily threw herself into her mother's arms. Sophia hugged her tightly, then she looked at Ethan. You brought her back. Ethan nodded. I promised I would. Sophia stepped closer. You could have been hurt. I know. You could have lost your company. I know. You could have lost everything. Ethan smiled. Not everything. Sophia looked confused. Ethan pointed toward her and Lily. I found you. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. The next morning, Ethan walked into Carter Global headquarters. This time, he wasn't wearing a janitor uniform. He wore a simple black suit. Every employee stood when he entered. The boardroom became silent. Marcus was gone. The stolen money had been recovered. The fraud had been exposed. Ethan sat at the head of the table. But something was different. He didn't feel like the same man who had left 6 months earlier. His lawyer placed a document in front of him. Your company is completely under your control again. Ethan looked at the document, then pushed it aside. I don't want to run the company the same way anymore. Everyone looked surprised. Ethan continued. Starting today, every employee will receive paid family leave. Silence, childcare assistance. More silence, and a hardship fund for employees facing emergencies. One board member frowned. That will cost millions. Ethan looked at him. So. The man had no answer. Ethan stood. If my wealth can't make life better for the people who work for me, then what exactly is it for? That evening, Ethan returned to the hotel, not as the owner, not as the billionaire, but as Daniel. He walked through the service entrance. His old cleaning cart was still there. He placed his hand on it. Then he heard Lily behind him. You came back. Ethan turned. She ran toward him. He picked her up. I told you I would. Lily smiled. Are you still a janitor? Ethan laughed. Sometimes. Sophia walked toward them. You know you're terrible at hiding. Ethan smiled. I've learned that. Sophia looked at him. And what have you learned? Ethan thought for a moment. That the richest person in the room isn't always the person with the most money. Sophia smiled. Then who is? Ethan looked at Lily. The person who has someone waiting for them at home. Sophia's eyes softened. That night they ate dinner together. Nothing fancy, no expensive restaurant, no private chef, just 3 plates of homemade food around a small kitchen table. Lily talked about school. Sophia laughed. Ethan listened. And for the first time in his life, the billionaire didn't feel like a billionaire. He simply felt like a man who had finally come home. But Ethan's story wasn't over. Because the following morning, something unexpected arrived at his office. An old envelope, no return address. Inside was a photograph of Ethan's father, and a handwritten message. Your father knew the truth about Carter Global too. Ethan stared at the photograph. His smile disappeared. There was one final secret left. A secret that had begun long before Ethan became a billionaire. And this time, the truth wasn't about money, it was about his family. Ethan stared at the photograph for almost a full minute. His father, standing outside the original Carter Global headquarters. But there was something strange about the picture. In the background was another man, someone Ethan recognized immediately, Marcus's father. Ethan's breathing stopped. He turned the photograph over. On the back, written in his father's handwriting, were 6 words, "Trust no one in the boardroom." Ethan immediately called his lawyer. Where did this come from? We don't know. Find out. I already started. Ethan looked at the photograph again. There's something else. What? My father knew about Marcus's family. His lawyer went silent. Then he said, Ethan, there's something you need to see. 2 hours later, Ethan was sitting inside an old storage facility owned by Carter Global. His lawyer placed a dusty box on the table. This was found in your father's private archive. Ethan opened it. Inside were old financial statements, letters, photographs, and a small cassette tape. Ethan stared at it. You still have a player. His lawyer smiled. Your father apparently did. Ethan inserted the tape. Static filled the room. Then his father's voice came through. If you're listening to this, Ethan, something happened to me. Ethan froze. His father's voice continued. I discovered that someone inside the company was stealing money. Ethan closed his eyes. I thought I knew who it was. The recording crackled, but I was wrong. A pause, then, the person I trusted most was someone very close to our family. Ethan looked at his lawyer. Who? The recording continued. I don't have enough evidence yet. Then the tape suddenly ended. Ethan stared at the player. That can't be all. His lawyer nodded. There was more. He handed Ethan another cassette. Ethan pressed play. His father's voice returned. This isn't about money anymore. Ethan leaned closer. If anything happens to me, protect Ethan. Then another voice appeared in the background. A woman's voice. Ethan immediately recognized it. His mother. She whispered, "Michael, they know." The recording ended. Ethan sat completely still. His parents hadn't died peacefully. They had been afraid. That evening, Ethan went home and found Sophia waiting outside. "You look upset." Ethan showed her the photograph. "My father may have been investigating Marcus's family before he died." Sophia looked at it, then her expression changed. "What? What is it?" She pointed at a man standing in the background. "I know him." Ethan stared. "Who?" "My husband's father." Ethan's heart dropped. Sophia continued. "He was the man who recruited my husband into Carter Global." Everything suddenly connected. Marcus's family, Sophia's husband, Ethan's father, the missing money, the threats. The secret recordings. It wasn't one betrayal. It was a chain that had lasted for decades. The next morning, Ethan called an emergency meeting, but before anyone arrived, his phone rang. Unknown number, he answered. "Ethan." The voice was old, male, calm. "You've been asking questions." Ethan stood. "Who is this?" "You don't remember me." "Then remind me." The man laughed softly. "I knew your father." Ethan's face hardened. "What do you want?" "To warn you." "About what?" "Your father didn't die because of Marcus." Ethan froze. The man continued. "Marcus was only following orders." "Whose orders?" Silence. Then, "Your mother knew the truth." The call ended. Ethan stared at his phone, his mother. Could she really have known? That night, Ethan returned to the old family house. It had been empty for years. He unlocked the front door. Dust covered everything. The piano, the photographs, the furniture. He walked into his mother's study. Then he remembered something. When he was a child, his mother had always kept a locked drawer beneath her desk. Ethan searched. Nothing. Then he noticed a tiny scratch underneath the drawer. He pulled it. A hidden compartment opened. Inside was a small envelope, his mother's handwriting, "For Ethan when he's finally ready." His hands trembled. He opened it. Inside was a letter. "My son, if you're reading this, then you've discovered the truth your father and I tried to hide. Your father didn't trust the people around him. Neither did I, but there is one thing you must understand. The greatest danger to our family was never the people who wanted our money. It was the person we invited into our home." Ethan stopped reading. His heart pounded. He turned the page, and then he saw the name, Marcus's mother. Ethan stared at the letter. His parents had suspected Marcus's family for years. But why? Then he noticed another sentence. "She knew about your father's secret account." Ethan frowned. Secret account? He had never heard of one. The letter continued. "Your father created a private foundation using his own money." Ethan's eyes widened. "What foundation?" Then he found the answer. It wasn't an investment company. It wasn't a bank. It was a charity. A charity created to secretly help employees' families. Families who had nowhere else to turn. Families like Sophia's. Ethan finally understood why his father had cared so deeply about ordinary workers. His father had believed that wealth meant responsibility. And Ethan had unknowingly spent years becoming the exact opposite. Then something fell from the envelope. A small key. Ethan picked it up. Attached to it was a handwritten note, "Locker 214. Ethan immediately knew where it was. The old Carter Global train station storage facility. He drove there before sunrise. Locker 214 opened with the key. Inside was a single black folder. Ethan opened it. His father's financial records were inside, but one document stood out. A transfer, $20 million. Sent to an unknown account. The recipient's name was hidden. Ethan's lawyer examined it. "This was made 3 days before your father's death. Can you trace it?" "Yes, do it." Minutes later, his lawyer looked up. His face had changed. "What?" The lawyer swallowed. "The account belongs to someone still alive." "Who?" He slowly turned the laptop toward Ethan. Ethan stared at the name, and his entire world stopped. Because the person who had received the money wasn't Marcus. Wasn't a stranger, wasn't a business associate. It was someone Ethan had trusted his entire life, his father's oldest friend, and that man was still working inside Carter Global. Ethan sat back. For the first time, the billionaire who had survived betrayal, fraud, and kidnapping felt truly afraid, because if his father's oldest friend had been involved, then the person who betrayed his family might have been beside Ethan all along, watching him, waiting for him to discover the truth, and somewhere in New York, that person already knew Ethan was getting close. And somewhere in New York, that person already knew Ethan was getting close. Ethan stared at the name on the screen. Richard Hayes, his father's oldest friend. For 27 years, Richard had been part of the Carter family. He had attended Ethan's childhood birthdays. He had stood beside Ethan's father at business openings. He had even delivered the eulogy at Ethan's father's funeral. And now, his name was connected to a $20 million transfer made just days before Ethan's father died. Ethan's lawyer broke the silence. "Do you want me to report him?" Ethan shook his head. "Not yet." "Why?" "Because if Richard is involved, he'll know the moment we move." His lawyer understood. "So what do we do?" Ethan looked at the screen. "We let him think we know nothing." That evening, Ethan returned to Carter Global headquarters. Richard Hayes was sitting in the executive lounge, 71 years old, silver hair, perfect suit, calm smile. The kind of man everyone trusted. When he saw Ethan, he stood. "Ethan." They shook hands. Richard smiled warmly. "You've changed." Ethan smiled back. 6 months away does that to a person. Richard laughed. "Your father would have been proud of you." Those words hit Ethan differently now. He sat across from him. "You knew my father well." Richard nodded. "He was like a brother." Ethan looked directly into his eyes. "Did he ever talk to you about money he kept hidden from the company?" Richard's smile disappeared for half a second, then returned. "Your father was a complicated man." "That isn't an answer." Richard leaned back. "Why are you asking?" Ethan smiled. "I'm trying to understand him." Richard studied him carefully. "Sometimes, Ethan, understanding the past only creates problems in the present." Ethan stood. "Maybe." Then he walked away. Richard watched him leave. And the moment Ethan disappeared around the corner, Richard picked up his phone. "He's asking questions." Ethan's lawyer intercepted the call. The voice on the other end was Marcus. Marcus was still in custody, awaiting trial. Richard spoke quietly. "How much does he know?" Marcus answered, "Enough to be dangerous." Richard's voice hardened. "Then we need to finish this." The next morning, Ethan received an anonymous email. There was no message. Only one attachment, a photograph. It showed his father standing outside a hospital. Beside him was Sophia's husband, and behind them, Richard Hayes. Ethan stared at the picture. The date was printed at the bottom. 3 days before his father's death, he immediately called Sophia. "Can you come to my office?" "Why? I found something about your husband." Sophia arrived 30 minutes later. Ethan showed her the photograph. Her hands began to shake. "That man's Richard." She nodded. "I've seen him before." "Where?" "At my husband's funeral." Ethan's expression changed. "What did he say?" Sophia looked down. "He told me my husband had discovered something terrible." "What?" He never finished the sentence. "Why?" "Because someone walked into the room." "Who?" Sophia looked at Ethan. "Marcus." The pieces were finally coming together. Marcus wasn't acting alone. Richard had been the person behind him. But Ethan still didn't understand one thing. Why had his father transferred $20 million to Richard? Was it stolen? Or was Ethan's father trying to protect it? Ethan needed answers, and he knew where to find them. His father's old private banker. The banker lived outside the city. Ethan and his lawyer arrived at his home that afternoon. The elderly man looked surprised to see Ethan. "I've been expecting you." Ethan frowned. "You knew I'd come." "Your father told me you would." "When?" 27 years ago." Ethan froze. The banker walked to a cabinet and removed a small metal box. "This belongs to you." Ethan opened it. Inside was a letter, his father's handwriting. Ethan began reading. "My son, if this reaches you, then I've failed to protect you from the truth. The $20 million transferred to Richard Hayes was never his. It belonged to the families of our employees. I created a private emergency fund because I discovered that some people inside the company were exploiting workers. Richard offered to help me protect the money. I trusted him. That was my mistake." Ethan's hands trembled. His father continued. "If Richard ever turns against you, remember this. He cannot access the entire fund without the second key. I have hidden that key somewhere only you would think to look. Ethan stopped. He knew exactly where. His mother's piano. That night Ethan returned to his childhood home. He walked toward the old piano. He remembered his mother teaching him to play. He opened the bench. Nothing. Then he noticed something beneath the wooden panel. A tiny metal key. He pulled it out. Attached to it was a note, for the boy who always looked under the piano. Ethan smiled through tears. His mother remembered. He placed the key into the metal box. A hidden compartment opened. Inside was a USB drive and one final photograph. Ethan inserted the drive into his laptop. A video appeared. His father sat behind his desk, older, tired, afraid. Ethan pressed play. If you're watching this, Ethan, then you finally found it. His father's voice shook. Richard wasn't the mastermind. Ethan's eyes widened. He was protecting someone. The video paused for a moment. Then his father said, "The person controlling everything is someone you would never suspect." Ethan leaned closer. "Someone inside our family." The screen suddenly went black. Ethan stared at it. Then his phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. A woman's voice whispered, "You should have stopped looking." Ethan froze. "Who is this?" The woman replied, "Ask your mother." The call ended. Ethan slowly lowered the phone. His mother had been dead for years, so why would someone tell him to ask her? Then he looked at the old photograph beside the piano. His mother, his father, Richard, and another person standing behind them. Someone Ethan had never noticed before. He picked up the photograph. His hands began to shake. Because the mysterious person in the background was Sophia's husband. And suddenly Ethan realized the truth was much bigger than Marcus, much bigger than Richard. His father's death, Sophia's husband's death, and the missing $20 million. Were all connected, but there was one final question. Who had ordered the deaths? Ethan didn't know, yet, but the answer was closer than he could imagine. Because the next morning someone would walk into his office and tell him the truth. The next morning, Ethan arrived at Carter Global before sunrise. He hadn't slept. The mysterious phone call kept replaying in his mind. "Ask your mother." But his mother was dead. So who could possibly know what she had hidden? At 3 a.m., someone knocked on his office door. "Come in." The door opened. Ethan's face went pale. It was Richard Hayes, his father's oldest friend. The man whose name was connected to the missing $20 million. Richard closed the door behind him. "I think it's time we talked." Ethan leaned back. "About what?" Richard looked at him for a long moment. "Your father." Ethan's expression hardened. "What do you know?" Richard slowly sat down. "More than I wanted to know." "Then start talking." Richard took a deep breath. "Your father didn't die because of a business dispute." "I know." "No." Richard shook his head. "You don't." He placed an old photograph on Ethan's desk. It showed Ethan's father, his mother, Richard, and Marcus's father. Ethan stared at it. "This was taken 3 days before your father died." "I've seen it." "Then look closer." Ethan examined the photograph. Richard pointed toward the corner. There was a fourth person, a woman. Ethan's mother was standing beside her. Ethan frowned. "Who is she?" Richard whispered, "Your mother's sister." Ethan froze. "My mother had a sister." "She did. Why didn't I know?" "Because your mother spent her entire life trying to protect you from her." Richard explained everything. Years earlier, Ethan's mother had discovered that her sister was involved in a financial fraud scheme. The scheme targeted wealthy families and companies. Ethan's mother threatened to expose her, but her sister disappeared. For years, everyone believed she had left the country. Then Ethan's father discovered she had returned, and she wasn't alone. She had partnered with Marcus's father. Together, they planned to take control of Carter Global. Ethan's father discovered the plan. He tried to stop them. That's when the Employee Foundation was created. The $20 million fund was designed to protect workers and their families. But someone wanted that money, and they would do anything to get it. Ethan looked at Richard. "You're saying my aunt was behind everything?" Richard nodded. "She was the person your father feared most." "Then why did you help her?" "I didn't." Richard's voice broke. "I helped your father." Ethan stared at him. "Then why did the money go to you?" "Because your father trusted me to hide it." Ethan suddenly understood. Richard hadn't stolen the $20 million. He had protected it. All these years, everyone had believed he was the villain, but he had been carrying the secret alone. Ethan stood. "Where is my aunt?" Richard looked toward the window. "She's been watching you." Ethan's heart sank. What? She knew about your disappearance. She knew I became a janitor. Yes. Who told her? Richard hesitated. Someone inside your company. Ethan immediately thought of Marcus, but Marcus was already exposed. Who? Richard looked directly at him. You're going to hate the answer. Before Ethan could respond, the office door opened. Sophia walked inside. She looked terrified. Ethan, he turned. What happened? Sophia held up her phone. I just received this. She showed him a message. Bring ETHAN to the old Carter estate tonight. Come alone. Below the message was a photograph, Lily standing outside school. Ethan's blood ran cold. She has Lily. Sophia nodded. Ethan grabbed his coat. Richard stood. Don't go. Ethan looked at him. I have no choice. Yes, you do. Richard stepped closer. This is exactly what she wants. Then what do you suggest? Richard looked at Ethan. Stop playing by her rules. That night, Ethan, Sophia, and Richard arrived at the old Carter estate. The mansion had been abandoned for years. The gates were open. No security. No lights, no guards. Ethan walked inside. Sophia, stay behind me. They entered the main hall. Then the lights turned on. A woman stood at the top of the staircase. Elegant, calm, older, her eyes were cold. Ethan stared at her. She smiled. Hello, Ethan. He knew immediately. His mother's sister, his aunt. She slowly walked downstairs. You look so much like your father. Ethan's voice was cold. Where is Lily? Safe. Bring her out. Not yet. Ethan stepped forward. You've threatened my family long enough. She laughed. Your family. She looked at Sophia. She isn't your family. Then she looked at Ethan. And that little girl isn't your daughter. Ethan's expression didn't change. You're wrong. Am I? She walked closer. You spent your entire life believing money could protect you. I don't need money to protect them. Then what do you have? Ethan looked toward Sophia, then toward Richard, then back at his aunt. People. His aunt laughed. People leave. Ethan smiled. Not the right ones. Suddenly, a door opened behind them. Lily ran into the room. Ethan. Ethan immediately rushed toward her. He dropped to his knees. Are you okay? Lily nodded, then hugged him. I knew you'd come. Ethan closed his eyes. I always will. His aunt watched them. For the first time, her expression changed. You really love them. Ethan stood. Yes. Why? Because they loved me before they knew I was rich. Silence. Ethan looked at her. You spent your whole life chasing money. You destroyed people for it. You betrayed my parents. You hurt Sophia's family. But you still don't understand what you lost. His aunt stared at him. What? Ethan answered, a family. Police sirens suddenly echoed outside. His aunt's face changed. Richard stepped forward. You've been recorded. She looked at Ethan. You planned this. Ethan nodded, every word. The police entered. She was arrested. Marcus's confession, Richard's evidence, the financial records, and the recordings from the estate were enough to finally expose the entire conspiracy. For decades, Ethan's family had been carrying a secret. Now it was finally over. Weeks later, the Carter Global Foundation announced a new initiative. It would provide emergency housing, childcare, scholarships, and financial assistance to employees and struggling families. Ethan personally funded the first $100 million. A reporter asked him, why spend so much of your personal fortune helping strangers? Ethan smiled. Because I spent years surrounded by people who wanted my money. He paused, then I became a janitor. The reporter smiled. And what did you learn? Ethan looked toward Sophia and Lily standing nearby. That the people with the least can sometimes give you the most. That evening, Ethan returned to the same hotel where his journey had begun. He walked through the lobby. Employees recognized him now, but Ethan still stopped at the service entrance. His old gray janitor uniform hung inside a locker. He touched it gently. Lily walked up beside him. You miss being Daniel. Ethan smiled. Sometimes. Why? Because Daniel learned something Ethan never knew. What? Ethan looked at her. How to be happy with simple things. Lily smiled. Then she grabbed his hand. Come on. Where? Home. Ethan looked at Sophia. She smiled. And the billionaire followed them, not because he owned the hotel, not because he owned a billion-dollar company, but because for the first time in his life, someone was waiting for him at home. And that was worth more than every dollar he had ever made. And that was worth more than every dollar he had ever made.